Yes.
Okay. Can you see the screen? Hello?
Hello?
Yep. Yeah, we can see it. We can see it.
Okay. So now we're going to go ahead. The agenda for today, the new employee and leadership performance appraisal forms, assessing the annual performance. We'll talk about writing the appraisals, and then the reviewer guidelines, the new interim appraisal feature, and then the dates that we have so far in the process. Performance management is a process that engages employers in their own success by providing expectations, training, and feedback. The appraisal forum is part of a larger performance management system at PHS. Performance management engages employees in their own success by providing expectations and training and feedback to help them succeed. Appraisals and goal setting are the key parts of any performance management system. The strengths of the process come from each supervisor and employee honestly engaging in the process. Providing clear expectation leads to success for the employee in performing their everyday job because they feel supported and they feel like they're a positive contributor. For the supervisor, you increase your performance in the unit because you're free to think about larger issues rather than spending more time on coaching and counseling multiple employees. And for the organization as a whole, employees feel more respected and feel good about being part of PHS. Overall, morale is higher as employees see they're rewarded for good performance and others are held accountable for poor performance. So production, we hope, is going to improve. PHS appraisal form summarizes employees' performance results for 2016. So you assess and acknowledge employee success in achieving the goals and performance expectations over the last year. And these are the expectations that you set at the beginning of the year or in April when we got it together. Identify the critical areas of growth and opportunities needed and create the groundwork for next year by identifying the new goals. We do have the employee leadership and performance appraisal forms on Pioneer, and they are updated. And I'll show you what those look like in a minute. As we know, the old forms only had 4 sections for your metrics for expectations, and the appraisal had 4 sections also. We've now increased those metric sections so that you can have, I believe, up to 25. There was a lot of feedback that they needed more sections. I think some people this year had up to 15, and the form would only hold 4. The only thing to be aware of as you're putting in those metrics is that because we're in Acrobat with the forms, Acrobat has a strange way of only letting you add and delete new metrics as the last box. So let's say mid-year or during your first quarter review, if you're doing quarterly reviews, you see there's an expectation that maybe a project has been canceled for the year and you want to erase it. You really can't do that unless you're cutting and pasting from the whole form. So, our advice to you would just be to, up on that metric, add a note that says something like this one was canceled for this reason, so that you don't have to, invent the wheel cutting and pasting through the whole form. Does that make sense? I'm going to show you, let's see, the signature section on the new form was moved up for ease in reviewing and checking for signatures and inputting scores. Let's see, do we have a copy of it here? No, I'll go out and find us a copy. Escape. Let's go out here. Want to find a form. Okay, so here are the new forms. Let's just look at the leadership appraisal. So there is the first section. You can see the score is there. This makes it much easier. The signatures are on the first page, so when these come in, people don't have to be paging through it to input the scores into the system and figure out that everything has been signed and approved. And then employees, when they're seeing this with you, there was a big discussion on this, but we feel overall that it's better for the employee to know that score at the beginning rather than to be stressing about it maybe all through your discussion and not really focusing on what you're talking about as far as performance. And then you see down here the metrics we're talking about. You can add a new metric with this button here. You can delete the last metric, but it is, only adding to the bottom and deleting from the bottom. The other thing that we need you to see is these boxes here. There's our annual appraisal, and that will, let us score. An interim appraisal is what you'll do if you're doing quarterly or half-yearly appraisals, and you'll see it takes all the scoring away because you're not scoring the interim appraisal. You're just writing feedback about how things are going, giving people that kind of feedback through the year to let them know how they're doing, but we're not actually scoring until the end of the year. This other we thought would be good to use for maybe supervisors that are moving on and they need to write up something about how employees have done up to now, or for a if you're a new supervisor and you need to get these from another supervisor, you could use that other. It takes away the score because, of course, whoever the current supervisor is, that's the person actually responsible for scoring their employee. Questions about that? I'm going to close this now. We can come back to it later. Let us get back.
Actually, I do have a question down below. So we were actually commenting that the interim appraisal actually is pretty helpful because we have, internal hires and people who move different programs and stuff. And so if we had the previous supervisor fill this out, then we wouldn't have to be on them during appraisal time when everybody's stressed about doing the people they have and they don't want to do the ones they used to have. So that's actually great. So the question I have, or the just maybe a confirmation, is down below the section 2 where it's core competencies and the communication, punctuality, and all that great stuff. So the boxes are a lot smaller, which is awesome. And so I'm assuming, or I'm hoping that means it's indicating that there should be a little bit less like a appraisal review on that part, just kind of a few sentences kind of wrapping things up, talking about what they did well, what they need to work on, and what they continue to have as a strength. Is that correct?
That is correct, but those boxes should expand. You should be able to,
yeah, I see that they expand.
Yeah, but remember, this is our first year with expectations, and we do expect that most of what you're going to be reviewing, especially for employees and not leaders, is whether they met and how well they met those expectations. Yeah, I think that's a good move. I think it's a good move because in my experience with appraisal time and having some managers and some supervisors in different positions who maybe don't really have the writing skills that they feel like they need to have. It's a real time of anxiety and stress when they're looking at these big blank sections that they have to just create and write. So I like being able to focus more on if you've met a metric, if you haven't, and then a few quick blurb on the other sections. And I think it's not going to be quite as intimidating for some of our other managers and supervisors. No, and I think we'll get better at it as we go on. We did, a spot check of expectations this year, and some were not as well put together as we would like. So we are going to enhance that training on expectations. That will also be happening very soon because, it is important that the expectations be relevant and measurable so that at the end of the year you really know how someone did. And if they're not put together well, you're really back in that old spot where you were before. You really can't tell across the board if all of your folks have that same metric and it wasn't measurable how they're doing. So we will get better at that, and that will make this a much easier process. The good metrics will make for a good appraisal. Anybody else have questions? Okay. The scoring system is the same as the scoring system we had last year. People did like the half points, and so that is pretty much what we have. What I have to say about that is, like, you can see that a 4 exceeds all expectations, and it's a great score. And based on that, to get a 5, you should be demonstratively better than exceeding all expectations. And although these scores are not unattainable, if you believe an employee meets this kind of criteria, your description on the appraisal should clearly support it. Because remember, your expectations, if somebody is meeting those expectations, they are meeting. If you think they're exceeding, you need to tell exactly why they're exceeding and make that a really good discussion so that the person reviewing that can tell why you think that person is doing over and above what a person that meets is doing. Questions about that? Okay. Getting started. There are many things you need to have on hand when you're completing the form. So any notes you've taken about employee performance through the year, as well as your quarterly and interim reviews if you did those, copy of the job description, reviewing the goals and expectations you set for the employee, and ensure you're aware of any awards or discipline this employee has received. And then writing the appraisals. You can cut and paste from the 2016 expectations and then provide enough detail about gauging the employee's success or failure on achieving the metric, or just include a copy of those 2016 expectations so that your reviewer has them to go along with the appraisal. Either way is fine. We don't want to put people through, we have those expectations, and if you save them, you can just pass them on along with the appraisal. It will save you doing a lot of typing of those. Of most importance is that the appraisal is based on facts and the metrics and results of the expectations that were given that occurred during 2016. Remember, the appraisal is only covering performance for 2016, so you should be specific about actions or projects that took place that contributed to the score, whether it's good or bad. And then we need to avoid, again, the halo effect. We think people are angels. So even great employees usually have some room to grow. So take your personal likes and dislikes for an employee out of the equation and focus on the goals and the outcomes for the review period. Don't be afraid to tell employees if they need improvement, where they need it. This is part of your being a leader, and it helps the employee succeed in the future. Avoid making comments regarding protected actions, such as FMLA and ADA issues. If you're talking about attendance, you say you were gone too much because you had FMLA. Those are all protected by law. Using sick leave for sick child issues in Washington, that is protected. So, you need to make sure that you're not factoring those into the equation for folks or putting any kind of text like that into your appraisal. Anybody have questions about that? And then as supervisors, it's part of our job to create accurate and fair evaluations for employees. Employee who's not performing to standards or not meeting objectives or goals or not improving on issues raised last year. Those are folks you should probably start with. We see a lot of appraisals if we start looking at them for people who are having issues where the same issue is raised and it causes a corrective action plan year after year after year. Those folks really should be working on that issue and make sure it's addressed before you sign off on a completed corrective action plan. If that kind of issue starts up again during the year, you need to start your performance management on that issue again. It's really not fair to people that are performing well that you have somebody that's not performing in the same kind of issue every year. Anybody have questions about that? The consistency, you can ask your HRBP for copies of previous appraisals if you need them. If your employee worked in another unit or position for a significant part of the year, Again, we need to contact the former supervisor to include the employee's performance in their prior position. And as supervisors, you have the responsibility to treat your employees similarly in similar situations. And this includes rating them similar for similar issues, both good and bad. And if the employee has worked for another supervisor, remember our goal is to be fair to the employee. The current supervisor needs to be contacted, ask for input on how that employee performed, and hopefully people will start filling out this appraisal now that we have it so that we fix those issues or can do them as they happen and change supervisors. The current supervisor is responsible for the scoring, not the previous supervisor. And if another supervisor is not available, we have to do the very best we can under the circumstances. In PHS, the system has direct supervisors draft the evaluations, but the next level supervisor is the reviewer, and that's an important role to review the appraisal and ensure it's descriptive, accurate, and fair. Reviewers are responsible for ensuring fairness and consistency across units as they review multiple supervisors' reviews. Signature on the appraisal indicates they fully approve of the contents and the score, and if they don't agree with the content or the score, they should go back to the direct supervisor and discuss it and request changes. Employees, again, like last year with a score of 2 or below, you're going to have to put together a corrective action plan for those folks. Please don't drag out corrective action plans. We want them to be happening within a month. They should never have to happen over more than 3 months, because if somebody's having an issue with maybe something they only put together quarterly, 90 days should be the most a corrective action plan ever lasts, but we try to get them over within 30 to 60 days. If the issue was addressed during the year through discipline, the corrective action plan should simply note the action and correction and state the expectation you think improved, and then how you want that performance or conduct to continue. Make sure you're seriously reviewing these plans on an interim basis with the employee up to the time of the corrective action plan completion. There are sign-off forms that we have out on PINAT for corrective action plan and also for, the PIP. So don't sign off on an issue being completed if it isn't satisfactorily completed. In reviewing annual appraisals over multiple years, again, it is common to see the same issues for improvement, and it's not unfair to other employees or to that employee. If things aren't corrected, you should consider further disciplinary action during the year, not just a lower score at the end. Now, next year for PIPs, even performance improvement plans, if we have those through the year with, our using the discipline that we have set up, all of those forms we will be asking people, we see those as they come in, as you turn in those corrective action plans and performance forms, we will need the completion form to come in. So HRVPs will be contacting folks if those don't come in, because there is, especially on the PIP, it tells you in 30 days you expect to see some kind of review with the employee to say whether they're making it or not, and those forms we're going to be watching for. Standard grading for new employees hired after 10-1 is going to be the same as last year. If you recommend continued employment, you'll rate them a 3. Extended evaluation period, you will rate them a 2. And if you're not going to keep those folks, you're going to rate them a 1. You may set interim reviews as often as you like. You should review progress of the employee on each expectation and competency if necessary, and you can further define expectations or modify the timeline. Most important, you need to assign new expectations if they complete the expectations they have. No employee should be without expectations they're working towards. And although interim reviews are unscored, you should document progress in the conversation to assist you at the end of the year when you're creating your appraisals. And the new interim review feature we've looked at, you can save the 2016 performance appraisals in your S drive. Not all locations have an S drive, but whatever drive you're saving in your network personal folders. You can keep those in there. When you're ready to do the 2017 interim appraisal, you can save as and adjust those as necessary. It allows you to track your employees' performance appraisal and make your work easier for the 2017 performance appraisal. Anybody not know how to save their files? Good. Okay. What did I do here? Are we chatting? Okay.
Sign language.
Yeah.
Don't know how to save as by now, we're in trouble.
It's going backwards for me. Okay. The appraisal training we're doing now, and we will have a recording, and we're going to pick whatever we think is our best recording and put it out on PINAT. It'll be out on YouTube, so you'll be able to get one of these recordings out there. But, you know, after the training, you have until the end of January 1/27 to send your completed appraisals into reviewer. Please send them in as you complete them, because the reviewers only have 1 week to review everybody's appraisal. So as you're completing them, please be passing them in. The reviewers approve appraisals from 1:30 to 2:03. They only have a week to do that. You'll submit to HR the signed 2017 expectations at the same time you submit the signed 2016 appraisal. But remember, that happens when you review it with the employee. So you really don't have to have your expectations ready for 2017 until you have the appraisal meeting with your employee. And this is like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You'll have, you know, your appraisal meeting, the new expectations for 2017. It's, you know, you only have to have 1 meeting instead of 2 meetings. HR provides the expectations training, and we'll set up another webinar to do that. We will improve that training so that we can hopefully get some better, or, you know, we'll get more concise on our expectations. Anybody have questions?
No. When do we meet with the staff?
For the final calendar for how everything is going to come out is not finalized yet. So that's still working through the senior leadership team. So all that we could share through the training this week is when the appraisals are due and when they're going to be reviewed. And I don't have any dates at the moment beyond that, but as soon as we get those, that calendar will be coming out to everyone.
So we won't be setting new expectations. Like you said, I just want to confirm, we won't be setting new ones for 2017 until we are delivering and signing the 2016 annual appraisal, correct?
Yeah, that's
March?
when you'll present those to the person, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
No.
Don't be afraid. Okay, so if anything comes up, please call me or your HRBP if you run into any issues or the forms don't work like, you know, we've explained that they're working, or you're having issues. Just call us and we'll walk through whatever we need to with you. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.